Now that we've started to sprinkle in a little bit of stories from Florida into the mix here, we're starting to get a good amount of recommendations for more. I've had a recent request from a viewer, Jimbo Shrump, to check into the St. Petersburg ghost light. I'm not sure if this is the same legend or a different one I stumbled across while searching, but this one was a cute little urban legend akin to the classic Bloody Mary game. But the more I dug, the more twisted, dark, and horrific it became. This is a story I had decided not to pursue because of the limits it pushes. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more it nagged at the back of my mind, almost begging to be told. So here we go. It's a dark part of our history that time has tried to forget, but we can't let it be forgotten. Not to glamorize it, but to let the world know that times were once like this, and we can never allow anything like this to ever happen again. Oh, and to all the haters that didn't like my Lake Lanier presentation because it brought up a part of history you want kept quiet, or maybe still agree with, you're definitely not gonna like this one. But don't worry too much. I'll warn you before we get there. It reminds me of a quote I found while reading the Midian Unmade anthology. When a monster is a monster, he's being true to his nature. When a human is a monster, it's far worse. Everyone loves a good, strange, weird, or bizarre story. Well, welcome to the American South, where dark legends and haunted history lurk around every corner. Where superstition, folklore, and a touch of backwoods magic blend with everyday culture. Some say, in order to survive. This is Dixie After Dark. Many lights, come out tonight. Many lights, come out tonight. Many lights. Well, now let's not get carried away. As the legend goes, if you repeat that little ditty 3 times, in St. Petersburg, Florida anyway, you'll summon the many lights. I read a description from a local that describes the legend perfectly. Tonight, go to Booker's Creek in St. Petersburg, Florida. Lean over the edge and look at the water, which appears more like the dirty, foamy stream of the end of your driveway when you wash your car than a waterway. Hold your breath for a moment and say, many lights, come out tonight, 3 times. Try not to notice the noise behind you as you finish. But then the rustling gets louder and is coming from all around you. You see a glowing figure a bit away from you, moving quickly as it runs the distance between the two of you. You turn to escape, but a pair of blue hands, too strong for how small they are, have grabbed your leg and won't let go. The other one is getting closer. You're in a city neighborhood. Tropicana Field is less than a mile away, but you're alone, and you know, because you've heard the stories for years, that you may never be seen again. Urban legends tend to twist and evolve over time, and the legend of the many lights is no exception. Even the name of the creatures change slightly, depending on who's telling the story. We have many lights as in something small, many lights as in a woman's name, the mystery lights, midget lights, Mary lights, and even Mennonites, as in the Anabaptist community. But that'll come into play later. As to what the many lights are today, there are 2 main tales. One has them small people, but more on the monstrous side of things. The Tampa Bay Times describes them as, quote, bluish-greenish gray, bald and small. Some people say their skin has a pale green glow. Others say they are only dressed in green, with painted skin, but do have glowing eyes. The other take on the legend says that the creatures once existed, but are now all dead. What is known as the mini-lights are their ghosts, generally appearing as blue or green orbs, as small as a child, either floating or appearing to run at you. This would explain the accounts of the mini-lights seeming to disappear and reappear, seeming to surround you when summoned. For those that believe the mini-lights are actually living creatures, the disappearing and reappearing shows up in their stories as well. This is explained by the fact that the mini-lights are believed to inhabit the drain system and sewers of the city. The one thing both legends agree on, though, is that the mini-lights, when summoned, will attack and abduct people, those people usually never being seen again. There are different origin legends for the mini-lights as well. One of the consistent themes of the origin, though, is a witch. One legend says the witch was named Minnie, hence one of the names of the mini-lights. The story says that Minnie lived in an old shack near Booker Creek. Others say she lived under a bridge on the same creek. Regardless, it's said that anyone approaching her property would be chased off by two protectors. As with the rest of the legend, there are multiple beliefs as to who or what the protectors actually were. Some say it was Minnie's two sons. Others claim the pair were circus freaks that remained with her after she worked with a traveling circus. Some say they were simply the witch's familiars, and even others claim they were monsters that Minnie had captured, or some sort of mutated human from some of her spells. Over time, it seems, Minnie left the area, whether it be by force, passing from old age, selling the land. The story is kind of all over the place. Whichever story you're told, though, the result is the same. Her protectors remained. Outside of the witch theory, some claim Minnie was a Mennonite, hence the possible name of Mennonites rather than mini-lights. Those stories have her shack being a small Mennonite church, or either that Minnie moved into a Mennonite church after losing her own land. How being a Mennonite explains having two familiar spirits or monster protectors isn't explained, though. It just remains constant in the legends. There are discrepancies over the exact location as well. The top three candidates where the legends take place, though, are the areas of Thrill Hill, Childs Park, and Roser Park. It's important to note that all three locations are connected to Booker Creek, mentioned earlier in the legend. Booker Creek seems to be the single connection in all of the various versions of the mini-light legends. Today, the area of Thrill Hill is mostly industrial. Roser Park is more of a historic homes and estates community. Childs Parks is a park and recreation center. Again, the legend seems to be all over the place, until you slow down and really analyze it. There are three things that connect all of these locations. One, of course, is Booker Creek, the same creek from the original legends. Second is very large and extensive sewer tunnels. And third is alligators. Now, I couldn't find anything historically that could link the original stories to any figure named Minnie, So everything presented so far is strictly from the legends themselves, and with the lack of any historical evidence linking anything, I've been left to speculate a lot. But we do have a fair bit to work with, right? At first glance, this sounds like the kind of story that is used just to scare kids, maybe even keep them away from certain parts of the city, especially when they're alone. The one thing that kept me confused, though, was the name Many Lights, when people described small green creatures, not lights at all. That's when the Booker Creek and the abundance of alligators at all of the suggested sites caught my attention. So, we have little green monsters disappearing and reappearing, chasing people down, mostly achieving their goal, leaving no witnesses. In fact, that's another thing that stood out to me. There are next to no first-hand sightings to give us any idea of what the Many Lights actually look like. For me, that either leans toward strictly urban legend, or for fun speculation, a lack of survivors. So, let's go with the fun route. Could it all be alligator attacks? Are there alligators lurking in the sewers, taking out anyone that gets too close while investigating the case of the Many Lights? Seems a lot more plausible than the sewer alligators of New York. Not to mention, I've found reports of visitors hearing alligators in the vicinity of Child's Park. If all the locations are connected by Booker Creek and the same large sewer tunnels, well, there you go. You can see where my mind was going. But then I came across one article that changed my whole train of thought. A reality check that took me well out of the speculative fun approach I was taking. Things got dark, really dark, in a way that only the history of Florida could provide. The article in question is titled Many Lights, Folklore as a Way to Deal with Trauma, written by Jabbar Edmond in 2017 and published by the Weekly Challenger. In that article, the writer links the legend of the Many Lights with alligator attacks as well, but not in a way I was originally thinking. It seems that Florida has a much darker history, one that was being hidden from the mainstream. According to this article, St. Petersburg, in its early days, was one of the largest alligator farming cities in America. It became so popular, in fact, that people came from all over the world to see the alligators, and even purchased baby gators, a practice that gave birth to the alligators in the sewers of New York legend. The popularity of these alligator farms and the tourist money they were bringing in spawned all kind of tourist traps to start popping up. But to keep these tourists satisfied, they had to actually see the gators, right? Which means there had to be a way to lure the gators out into the open. The easiest way to do that would be with alligator bait. Well, here's where I found out that the phrase alligator bait is actually a racial slur. According to this article, some of these alligator farms lured the gators out by using black children as bait. Whether this practice actually took place is a hotly debated topic in the history community. What isn't debated, though, is the marketing approach these farms took. If they weren't actually doing it, they sure insinuated that they were. Flyers and postcards advertising the use of black children as gator bait was widely used, and there are newspapers and magazines that claim these crimes happened as far back as the 19th century, and the postcards themselves were used well into the 1950s. The writer goes on to share childhood experiences where he was told by community elders that there was no such thing as the mini-lights, that it was the alligators, the descendants of those from the alligator farms. That is what the area children were scared of, and what they should be on the lookout for. Now, what if those stories are true? What if it's a little bit of both? With the amount of ghostly legends we've covered on this channel already, my mind couldn't help but jump at that possibility. What if today's mini-lights are the ghost of children lost to these alligator farms? Angry, vengeful spirits seeking revenge. Say what you will, but there's more history pointing to that idea than the existence of a former witch living under a bridge. Who knows? Maybe Jabbar Edmund is onto something, and these legends all spun off from a community trying to deal with real-life traumas. I feel like that idea is more horrific than any old witch or witch's familiars running around. All folklore has a grain of truth if you peel back the layers enough. Sometimes, the truth beneath the stories can be more terrible than the legend that persists today. As for me, I think I'll leave the St. Petersburg mini-lights alone. I don't need some alligator charging out of the sewer at me anytime soon. But for the most part, I'll leave the mini-lights alone out of respect. Lights or no lights, ghost or no ghost, the legacy of what could be doesn't sit right with me. Not at all. I think I'll just leave them be, and hope they can one day rest in peace.